Hello, my name is Charles. We all have an inner critic residing in our mind, reminding us that we're not good enough, we're not doing it right. The inner critic loves to dominate and to be the boss. It can have a parental tone, reciting long lists of our faults. It can have different faces. It may be the mother or father. It appear as a priest, strict school teacher, or military sergeant, but it's usually an older, serious voice. Its function is to put us in our place through criticism. Then a critic will say things like, "You'll never amount to anything. You're lazy. You're so stupid. You're fat or thin, and no one will ever want you. You are a mistake," especially if we're an unwanted child. Whatever we do to counter those thoughts will never be good enough because it will find new thoughts. The inner critic develops at an early age. It learned from all those people in our environment who criticized, blamed, and shamed us. The more critical and demanding our caregivers were, the stronger hold our inner critic will have on our lives. These messages were reinforced year after year through repetition and have been internalized. When a child internalizes negative beliefs about itself, this critical voice becomes louder and louder, and so ingrained during adolescence, and by adulthood, it's become a permanent part of our psyche. These beliefs are not who we are. They came from outside. They were learned, and we have become influenced by a perception of limitation. Left unchecked, the inner child concludes that there's something wrong with him, her, and develops self-blame and shame, which eventually translates into the voice of an inner saboteur. This inner saboteur mechanically acts out against whatever had power over us as a child. It's an activity that is going on inside and can translate into our lives via procrastination, martyrdom, that is giving to others what we should be giving to ourselves, and settling for less. What's the payoff? Well, we get to play the victim. The differences between the inner critic and the inner saboteur are very subtle. Our inner critic bullies the inner child, is an authoritative figure. It gives us a flattening message. It shames us, has a toxic, abusive parental voice. It undermines our sense of self. The inner saboteur is a detouring presence. It's like an undercover agent. It's a flattening action. It sets us up for shaming. We act as a rebellious, hurt child and disguise it as a rational, adult language. It undermines our direction in life. Detaching ourselves from this self-shaming learned from childhood um, means facing up to our inner critic. It means listening to its message to understand its energetic feel and direction. Then we can choose to respond to it. Think of a time when you would catch yourself criticizing yourself. That's your inner critic attacking you. You might have made a mistake and said something like, "How stupid was I? What a fool." Or maybe you're amongst a group of people and you catch yourself saying something like, "I don't belong here. My ideas are no good compared to the others. Well, I'm not good enough." When that happens, stop and reflect. How do you feel? What sensations do you have? Where do you feel them in your body? What is your inner critic telling you? What's its core message? What tone is it using? What's its energy? How do you usually respond to that inner critic? Does it remind you of a voice from your past? How do you feel when your inner critic attacks? If you were to give your inner critic a name, what would it be? What phrases does it use? What are two things you can do to regain your perspective and power when being impacted by this inner critic? Where do you use self-sabotage? And how do you feel when you say that and admit, "I'm self-sabotaging"? When you tune into your inner child, it'll have primary unmet needs. Go back to the video on inner child I made earlier on and revisit that. It's so important. I've been having conversations with people recently who are in their 50s and 60s, and these patterns keep coming up. Things that were developed and ingrained from their childhood. It's so important to unpeel these layers of the onion. If you've liked what I've said, if it resonates with you, like and share, make any comments you wish. You can go to my website and consider purchasing my program. I wrote it initially for men, but it can also be useful for women. I've had women ask me, why don't you give it to women too? I think men need it more, and that's part of my purpose being on YouTube, is to help other men fast track their way through these knots that I've gone through. See you in the next one.